Saul tried to do with the witch at Endor. But he's going to have to go to the Lord to find this wisdom. And we read about that here in chapter 2. David is going to become king over the southern tribe of Judah, and he's going to be crowned king at Hebron. Earlier, Samuel had anointed king in a very private ceremony. Not everybody knew about it. I'm sure a lot of people did. Jonathan did, and other people did. But now, David is moving into the public eye, and he is claiming those promises of God as God directs. As often happens, though, it is difficult to know when to take action and when to wait on the Lord. And that was David's problem. Is he saying, now is the time? Should I declare myself king? Now is the time? Should I move into action now? Or should I wait for some other time? And he wants to know what God has to say, and so he inquires of the Lord. That phrase we have seen over and over and over again in David's relationship with God. David always went to the Lord. Saul, even when he went, didn't want to trust God, didn't want to believe God, had his mind made up before he went and asked God. And if he didn't like the answer, he had everybody killed that had given him the answer. But David listens. And that's a tricky thing that we have to be involved in as well. Listening for God when he wants us to move or when we should wait. Sometimes it's going to take your understanding of the heart of God, your understanding of God's character, to help you decide that. Sometimes you're going to get a very clear word from the Lord. But more often than not, you're going to have to use your understanding of who God is to make those kinds of decisions. David inquires before taking any step. Any step. He knows that the Amalekite messenger should be killed. He takes that step, but before he declares himself king, he goes and asks God. Now Ishbosheth, again, we've contrasted David and Saul. Now we contrast David and Ishbosheth. Ishbosheth becomes king through political maneuvering, through these machinations of political parties and armies. And he doesn't inquire of the Lord. He just says, I've got the power, I've got the army, I'm going to be in charge. He doesn't go to the Lord in prayer. He makes a power play. You familiar with power plays? In hockey, power plays are when one team has more people on the ice than the other team. You get a penalty, one of your people is sent to the penalty box, and your team has more people on the ice. This is the guy in the white and the black. He's the guy that kept us from getting a gold medal. He scored that last goal at the Olympics. You should hate him. His name is Sid Crosby. He's a very good hockey player. But you know, in a power play, it doesn't matter whether or not, in a power play it matters that the other team has more people on the ice. But when we're talking about God, numbers don't matter. Because God can do any kind of thing when he wants. It doesn't matter how many people. Jonathan realized that way back when he fought against the Ammonites. David realizes this. When God is on your side, there's no such thing as too many opponents. Because God can take care of them all. So David moves to Judah. God says, go there. I will take care of Ishbosheth. I will take care of the 10 northern tribes. You go to Judah and start acting like a king. He goes up to Hebron, which you see in the middle of the map, and you can see the little inset where Hebron is. It's south of Jerusalem, south of Bethlehem, in the middle of his power base, of David's power base, of the people that he's been helping, the people that he's given money to. And so he goes and declares himself king at Hebron. And the people come to Hebron to declare David king. Here his anointing is not by God, but by the people. They are recognizing that they have a relationship with him. They are saying, we will serve you. We will be your friend. We will be on your side. They are declaring their allegiance to him in anointing him king. David then goes and talks to the people at Jabesh Gilead. This is an unusual move on David's part. This paragraph is all about loyalty. Earlier on, loyalty, there you go. That's loyal, isn't it? What could be more loyal than a basset hound? I don't know. There was a special relationship, a special loyalty between Saul and Jabesh Gilead. Earlier in Israel's history, Jabesh Gilead had betrayed the nation. But when they were in trouble, they turned to Saul and said, Saul, can you help us? And Saul came and helped them. Saul was loyal to them even when they didn't deserve it. And so they were loyal to Saul. And so when Saul died, the men of Jabesh Gilead marched all night, crossed big rivers, invaded hostile territory to take down Saul's body, which had been nailed to a wall, and the bodies of Saul's sons. And they rescued those bodies and took them back and gave them the proper burial. They were loyal to Saul. Well, now David says that God is loyal to these people, and they're loyal to Saul, and David is going to be loyal to them. They can count on him. And that's really, to me, an unusual move in saying that you helped my enemy, but I'm going to help you. I'm going to be loyal to you. I am going to give you my loving kindness just like God gives his loving kindness to them as well for what they've done. And he promises them that he will support them. The loyalty that they had to Saul now has to be transferred to David himself. Now, as we look and see how we can apply this to our lives, I think the first thing that we need to look at is that the faithfulness of David. Not only the faithfulness of David, but the faithfulness of God himself. Because both of these things, I think, are very clear here. Even after Saul is dead, David is still loyal to and faithful to Saul himself. Rather than seizing the kingdom by force, David says, I'm going to let things play out. I'm going to let God have time to work. I'm going to do the things that God is asking me to do. But I'm not going to seize the kingdom by force. I am not going to show Saul disrespect. I am going to let God work his will in this world. David is here portrayed not as avaricious or greedy or desiring things or trying to take things by force, but as patient and loyal, and he is just going to be faithful in everything that God has done. He is broken by his grief. Indirectly, our text tells us that God's got it all under control. You know, for a couple chapters there in 1 Samuel, David's life was very precarious. He didn't quite understand how this is going to work. He was caught between Saul, who wanted to kill him, and the Philistines, who were the enemies. And God worked that all out just perfectly. But God has worked this out as well. He tells David that he's going to be king. He moves him into Judah and says, here, have these people proclaim you king. He is working through all of this. God is in charge and working. God has promised to deliver David from Saul. And he has.